I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, first up, we have our student representative report, and Aaron will take that over.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we actually, Olivia is not here, and she may show up in a few minutes. So we have three student reps right now: Riley Vaughn, who's a senior, Amari Graham, who's a senior. And so they're going to be saying a little bit about who they are and why they are interested in being this role. And so the purpose of having student reps is to get student voice. And we have had student reps over the last probably 10 years. At different times, we've had one student, two students. During COVID, it's really challenging to have any students. We were thrilled last year, we had 5 students. And the perspective that they would share with you, with me, I value greatly. And so we're excited that we have 2 seniors who are interested in being this role, and Olivia is a 9th grader. And so I think there's also a chance that I've talked to Mr. Castle that we might have opportunity for have some other students, as well as Mr. Cook and Mr. Healy, about having middle school students over the course of this year share with us their perspectives on a variety of topics. So at this point, what I would hope that you could do is just say who you are and maybe share a little about your current schedule and then why you are interested in being in the role you're in. Mari, can you go first?
Yeah. All right. My name is Mari. I'm a senior at Washougal, and I also do Running Start. So I take most of my classes at Clark College. And for my schedule, I have classes like Monday through Thursday. So, yeah. And why I liked being a student representative last year, and also I'm looking forward to this year because I think it's important for like student voices to be heard, and also for there to be some like input from the student body. So I would be like sharing my own like perspective and yeah, what it's like being a student.
Great. We're glad you're back. Riley.
I'm Riley Vaughn. I'm a senior at Washougal High School this year. And I've been in the Washougal community since I was little, and I've been in Washougal my whole life. I'm at the high school, but I'm taking AP classes. And do you want to talk about extracurricular?
Sure.
And then right now I'm doing manager for the tennis team. And then I'm also the ASL club president, and then the ASB leadership vice president. And I want to be a part of the student representatives because I think over time, as I've taken on different roles of leadership, I've learned how to represent people and like peers very well. And I also understand that not everything's just about me, but about what will benefit.
Great. Thank you. So what gives you hope for this year, your senior year, Murray?
Yeah, so I'm also in the like Washougal ambassador program this year. So I know we're doing like a lot of like new projects this year, like trying to get more tutoring, and then there's lots of different like big ideas that people have come up with. So I'm pretty excited about that. So
Great.
So this summer, a group of kids from our leadership program at the school, we went to a conference down in Florida, which Jostens Renaissance hosted. And basically it was a big conference, and we went to a bunch of different things and learned about how to improve the climate and culture of your school and your community. And our group learned a lot of new things that we were able to bring back to the high school. And we've been implementing things like little by little, and it's been going really well. So we're hoping that by the end of the year, it's going to be like even more than we had like planned.
Great. So what has been a highlight for this year so far? So Mari, I think you just started classes.
yeah. So yeah, this year I'm taking most of my classes in person rather than like last year I did online. So I'm enjoying sort of having more being around more people and stuff. So yeah.
Good. Which campus do you go to?
I go to the main campus.
Okay. Riley, you shared a little bit about, some things that are going well. Can you maybe?
Yeah,
some
I think
detail?
a highlight for me has just been like, for myself, getting back to school and kind of getting to reconnect with all my friends, because without like those relationships there, I don't think I would enjoy school as much as I do. And kind of just seeing, I think the school just overall started on a better point this year, and we're all kind of clicking better and like engaging with each other.
Great. So as I was just talking to you about, this is October is National Principal Appreciation Month. So for the whole month, we're celebrating our principals. Yeah, I know. It's exciting, isn't it? So could you give us, like, you think about your principals that you've had, maybe talk a little bit about maybe your favorite principal or what you remember about your principals or what has made an impact?
Yeah. So I've moved around a lot, so I've had a lot of different principals and all this. But one thing that I can think of is my current principal, Mr. Castle, recommended me to do this. So that was a good opportunity. So.
Yeah. And you've done a really good job in this role. Yeah, he's right behind you, by the way. Riley, what do you think?
One thing that I admired about my middle school principal, Miss Christensen, was basically like every Friday we would do like we had like cougar cards, which was like a reward system, and we would do like a drawing, and then the winner would get like free lunch from Taco Bell, Subway, or Pizza Hut, and she would like pay for it and do that, and it was just a good way to kind of like work for something and be like, oh, I'm gonna earn my cougar cards, and then you could kind of get to talk to her and connect with her.
Yeah. Did you hear that, Mr. Castle? Yeah, yes, yeah. Well, okay, so thanks for introducing yourselves. Could you please introduce yourself and just kind of describe what area of the district and maybe why you like being a school board member?
Everyone's looking at me.
Yeah,
You can start.
yeah.
So I'm Ida Royer. I represent District 4, so like right up the road. My son goes to CRGE here. I recently ran, so I was just sworn in December, so I'm pretty new. I'm still learning a lot about how school districts function. Because there's a lot of nuts and bolts I'm finding out in a lot of different pieces. So, and mainly I ran because I feel like I want to represent my community and be fair and open-minded. And I felt like I could bring that to the table. So that's why I ran.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Sadie McKenzie. I am in District 3, right kind of next door to her. And I have a 6th grader at JMS. And I'm an older student that goes to a private school. I ran because I love volunteering in the schools. I like being part of your learning, but I also love that we have brought you guys back, because I think the most important part is listening to you guys and what you guys want from us, because we're not in school anymore, so we don't really know. So we really enjoy hearing from you guys.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Cooper, and I represent District 1, which is kind of the west side of Washougal. I live up above the Sandy swimming hole, and our district goes down on the flats on the other side of the river. And I still wonder why I ran for school board in the first place. But the main reason is because of the opportunities that my education provided me in life, and my belief that public education is key to success in society and personal success, and I really want to live in an educated community and have a community that makes the best decisions possible and be part of helping do that here in Washougal.
Thank you.
I'm Chuck Carpenter. I'm a retired guy. I spent my whole life in schools, so I volunteered with the school board because I thought maybe I could offer some thoughts on many of the mistakes that I made when I was in schools. My passion is, I'm a retired music teacher, so my passion is fifth grade band. So every day I go and help the music teachers of the grade schools with fifth grade band.
So I'm Jane Long. I represent District 2, which is east and upriver is probably the best way to describe it. And I'm even newer than Ida. I just joined last month. And the reason that I volunteered was because I really believe in what the school district's trying to do. And this community is an amazing one. And I just want to continue to contribute to it however I can.
Thank you so much. Okay, so anything else that you wanna share, you wanna add? And before you're done with this board meeting, I would like to ask you about one thing in particular. And Amari, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but there's been some kind of a change in practice with cell phone use. Riley, and maybe you've heard about it, Amari. Just kind of your thoughts on that change and what have you noticed so far?
I'll start just because I've been on front of it. I do probably more. I think that it definitely was not very well liked by a good majority of the students in the school. I think the first couple weeks were definitely really bad, but now that we're kind of a month into school and kids are like getting used to school and like reconnecting, it's better. I think it was a situation that kind of just came with like pros and cons. But in the end, I can see why it would benefit the students' learning and the teachers' ability to teach better.
Thank you.
I haven't had any personal experience with the cell phone policy really, but I've heard from other people that it's not a very popular policy. So yeah, that's what I've heard.
Okay. And we really want you to share what you've heard and your real experiences. And so it doesn't all have to be positive feedback. The board is not interested in hearing just positive feedback. So we really want you to tell us what your experiences have been. Do you have any questions for our student reps?
Just keep being honest with us, you know, we do want to know that. We don't want to do things, so we don't want to force things upon you that aren't needed, but we also, you know, we want to make sure that we're doing what's right for you guys. So keep coming back and telling us.
Another question. At last year, the student reps brought up some safety concerns in the first or the second meeting it came to bullying and stuff, and I'm curious whether that's feeling better this year or the same or worse or.
I personally, I don't really surround myself with people that are like prone to bullying or like people like that. And in a lot of the classrooms that I'm in, the teachers create environments that doesn't happen. But I have like my schedule is a very specific schedule of very like teachers I've known for a long time. I feel like since it's towards the beginning of the year, I've not heard a lot so far, but I'm not really involved with that side of things either.
I'm not sure I've noticed like a big change from last year. Like there's sort of like in the same footing.
And you haven't been to campus, have you?
Well, I went around the first week and stuff. Just did some of my work that I have to do. Yeah, I haven't really been in classrooms there.
And do you check in with your counselors or your counselor at the high school?
Yeah. Especially. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so it's good that I appreciate that we have someone who's a Running Start student, and so giving your perspective on what are some of the challenges with that, as well as what do you appreciate, and then Riley, you have all your classes at the high school, and Riley's very much involved with ASB leadership, and she described that the trip to Florida and then coming back, and Mr. Castle and I had an opportunity in August to talk with those students and Kyla Ritchie and Miss Grant, and just their excitement around this idea of what we're doing and be very intentional and proactive in creating a culture where everyone feels, I think, safe and included. Okay.
Another question,
Yeah.
since you're both seniors, what do you plan on doing when you finish?
I'm planning on getting my AA by the end of like when I graduate high
This
school.
year? Yeah.
Yeah. And transferring to a 4-year university, so.
To study what? Do you know what you want to study?
Psychology.
I haven't fully decided like where I want to go, but I do know that I want to attend a Christian university next fall. And I'm considering, I've always wanted to, but as you grow older, things change. But I'm kind of going back to it now, but I think I might pursue a degree in education.
Love that. All right. Any other questions for our student reps? Okay. As I mentioned, you are free to go. You're also free to stay. It's up to you. We have a lot of presentations. It's going to be a great board meeting. So if you choose to leave, I'll just update you in the shared document. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later. Yeah. Thanks, Riley. Yeah, see you later.
All right, next up, we have the board and superintendent update. So I will call on, we'll start with June first. Jane first. Try you, Jane, again. I've done that twice now.
Yeah, I don't have anything this time, hopefully.
Okay. Chuck, you got anything for us?
Having been out of town for the last couple of weeks, no, I have nothing to report other than.
All right.
Appreciate we're starting the learning tours. Not an overwhelming turnout from the staff, but I heard things that will be relayed to the appropriate people, and appreciate all the input we get on those listening tours when we can have a conversation rather than simply be static listeners.
Hopefully we have so much company tonight. It's been lonely.
Is that all? Yeah, thank you for the staff that did come to our roundtable. We do appreciate that. And just because this was the first staff one, we obviously want our staff to come to all of them if you'd like. We hope that we have a bigger turnout as the year goes through, because we really do want to listen and be able to have conversations with you guys. Other than that, I guess that's it.
Okay, so I got a few items.
Oh, boy.
So I shared on Friday the strategic plan link. I don't know if you had a chance to access it. If you didn't, please, check it out. So thanks to Les for putting that together. It's the timeline. Looks very similar to the last time we did this 6 years ago. Just a reminder, our current strategic plan is sunsetting at the conclusion of this year. So we want to move on a strategic plan for the next 6 years. That's what we've identified. So there's a timeline there. There's going to be meetings with staff, with different community groups, with our families as much as possible, booster groups to gather input. We're going to be sending some questions out electronically to gather more input. And then similar to last time, we're going to have a steering committee that's going to meet over the course of probably, the second semester to look at the information and then make a decision regarding the plan. So there isn't a hurry to do this, other than the one we currently have as is ending this year. But so looking forward to that process. Please feel free just to send your communications to me or discussions as we meet regarding your feedback. Listening tour, the first one happened today is great. Appreciate that, and did a lot of listening, which is the purpose, right? And so it's up to whoever joins us and what they want to share. So Sadie, I appreciated sitting with you and spending that 90 minutes listening to a couple of our staff members who've been in the district for a long time. And so their experience is really important to us. And Jim and anyone else who has some information you want to share. So we have what was as far as our notes go, and then anything you want to share with me, please do so. Discipline policy revision. So we're pausing on that policy revision for the reasons I stated. I had a conversation with an attorney who said, there's more revisions coming. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me to make a final decision on a policy and then go through the same process, and it could be within the next couple of weeks that we get more updates. So in the meantime, I know Ida, you had a question specific to appealing the consequence, and what's that process? So we want to make sure that that isn't being changed. That's my understanding, but I want to make sure that within the revisions that's a fact. So we're just going to wait and wait for the update from OSBI. And then once we have it, WASDA will present to us a model policy, then we'll present that to you. Any questions about that? No. Okay. Legislative advocacy, we can't start too soon. I sent an email to 2 of our legislative representatives regarding a TK funding shortfall that I don't know if I shared that with you. Did I share that with you? So that was a surprise to us. And we didn't budget for that shortfall.
Yep.
So because of that, we've communicated to 2 of our legislative representatives, and an individual I had talked to said they would be sharing it with others. And so this is something that we talked about. I meet with superintendents once a month. And so we talked about this TK shortfall. It doesn't impact every district because some districts don't have TK. I think we're fortunate to have TK. I think majority of them do. So anyway, it's a challenge that we are communicating with our legislative representatives, who they're the ones who are going to support this, helping us with this situation. So if it doesn't happen, then I'm sure in the future we'll have conversations about how are we going to respond without that funding.
Oh, sorry, I'm not tracking that. So that's not for this year. This is for future years.
It's for this year. It's for this school year. Yes, we have 80 TK students with a waiting list of, I think, 16 students. So we have 80 students that we started the year thinking we were going to get funding for 80. And basically what they're saying is there's the shortfall, but they didn't know there was going to be this many TK students in the state. And so I think it's 40% less is what they budgeted. So there needs to be an adjustment to that budget amount in order for us to be fully funded with TK, which has a certificate staff member and a classified paraeducator supporting those students. And we have 20 students in each of our TK classrooms. And I got to visit one of the classrooms at Gauze last week. And these 28 TK students, these 4-year-olds, are sitting in groups of 4. They're in collaborative teams. They were doing some coloring, getting ready, their reading buddies. And I was so impressed with what I saw. And I think every one of them showed me their artwork and their efforts. So yes.
They're amazing.
Yeah, they are amazing, very friendly.
They're very friendly.
Yeah, very talkative.
Is there anything that we can do to help with that? I
Yeah,
mean, should we
yes.
be sending letters? Should we?
Yeah, so I'll make sure that you have the version
Okay.
that I prepared, and absolutely, thank you.
'Cause, I've.
And the email addresses, we'll make sure you have those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can, show them what we've seen, or,
Right.
document the things that we've seen.
Yep.
And how well the program is. And so
Yes,
maybe not just coming from you, but from coming.
I love that idea.
from
Yeah,
others.
great, thank you. Okay, that's all I have. Oh, yeah.
So
go
are
ahead.
we having to adjust our budget this year?
So that's the idea. Right now, we aren't going to, because basically what was presented by Superintendent Reichdahl was it would be later in the spring. That if we're gonna make an adjustment, and we haven't calculated how many months that would be over the course of this year. I'm thinking somewhere in April, right, where this idea that the funds would run out, or we'd not get the apportioned amount that we were expecting. So we've got a little bit of time to plan and see what they do.
Are there state mandates on the 180 days for TK? Are there any constraints?
Well, I mean, what's interesting about TK is students and families can make the decision for them not to attend full TK until a date in January. But then after that, what you're saying that they're 180 days.
No mandates, the state allows us to be flexible when it comes to how much FTE a student is assigned. We encourage families that by the end of winter break, that their student is attending full days, 5 days a week, because the purpose is to be medically
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if we got budgeted for less than 50 students and we have 80, something's gonna have to give.
Exactly. Yep. And so we will be talking about, what are our options? Yep. And then we'll fill you in. Okay. We're ready to move on. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we've got Principal Appreciation Month.
Yes.
Yay. Very
All right. So principals, will you come up here, please? And join us? So October, the entire month of October, celebrating principals and the work they do. And so we have every one of our building principals, except for Wendy Morrill, and she was not able to make it. But I will follow up with Wendy and make sure she hears something similar from them. We have shared with them our appreciation in a couple communications out to the district, to the world, really. How much we appreciate our principals, and having been a principal, having a little bit of context to the position, I know how challenging it can be and the work that they do and their commitment to this district, and so appreciate what they do on a daily basis. We spent a lot of time in August together planning for this year. We've had a really good start. And I believe that's because of our team and our principals and what they do intentionally to support our students, staff, and families. So thank you for what you do. We appreciate you. I can't guarantee that every day this month you're going to get this kind of treatment, but we do have some things for you. Corey, can you help me with the names are on them, so I don't really need help. Right? Okay. Okay, so here we have Mark. Yep, there's yours. Hannah. Yes. Thank you. That's really helpful, Margaret. I appreciate that. Tammy, there's yours. Brooke. Go. So clearly they are the kind of people, they don't look at their presents, they just hold on to them. Yes, yes. Okay, so thank you. It's a little out. Okay.
So there.
Right. I'm just curious, board, do you have anything to say to our principals on celebrating them this month?
You guys are amazing.
Yeah.
We appreciate you so much.
It's a hard job.
Yeah.
I know that it is. You guys do good.
They do.
They do.
Yes.
We've been navigating some tough times, so I feel like you guys are like the steady mountain that really help everything stay going.
They're very humble. And so this is probably awkward for them. So-
You know, we're just sitting here staring at each other.
Yeah.
Like, hi. You guys are really in front of assembly. I think they're good.
Right, so we also asked them there, so this is recognizing you 6:45 on a Tuesday night. And also, since they're here, I asked them, if you could share a little bit about, what any changes you've made this year specific to cell phone use.
Okay.
And so they were prompted with that question a little days ago. And so there might be something they can share about that. And as we've talked, elementary cell phones aren't the most challenging thing that they're dealing with in elementary school. It happens more around 6th grade. And so that's where it begins and doesn't end until after they graduate. Right? So that's so it's really a middle school, high school, but I think elementary principals, you have some language in your handbooks regarding cell phones. So Brooke, would you like to start it off?
I would, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think the main thing for elementary and for Cape Horn Sky is we're continuing with what we've always done is they're not allowed out of the backpacks. Technology really, other than, iPads that the teacher incorporates in instruction, they're really not necessary. And so when cell phones are out in inappropriate times, they're kindly asked to be put away, or held on to for safekeeping, but that's very, very rare. So what I've done is heard from my colleagues about this new thinking and new, adapting cell phones in schools and listen to the board policies and presentations. And so I'm educating myself and reading the book that, several of my colleagues are. And it's just really interesting to think about. So I enjoy that.
Plus, as a mother, you have.
And as a mother, oh yes.
You know this too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in all areas.
Mr. Healy?
So there's not a lot of new this year. But last year we kind of began enforcing our policy a little more. So the policy was always kind of the same, the rules and expectations. The extent to which they were consistently enforced was not the same. And so that policy was off and away during the school day, except at lunch, after school, and before school. And that off and away was meant to be in backpacks. Initially, we just stepped up, what does it mean to have it off and away, like during passing time, for example, because often they might have it away in class, but then they would come out and immediately get on it. So we started enforcing that more last year. And then this year we've kind of continued to step that up to say, hey, it can't be in a pocket either, because we know that's also distracting for students if it's chiming or dinging and buzzing and all those things. We're not searching kids to any extent, but if it becomes an issue, then we're kind of saying, hey, it goes away. Our practice last year and this year and previously is if it's something that shouldn't be happening, then the teacher kind of takes it away, which again is what the policy says. And then there's some additional steps if it continues to be a problem. We don't have a lot of problems with it anymore. It's become just the culture up there is that there's not a lot of cell phone use outside of lunchtime. Now, lunchtime, you'll see a lot of cell phones. One thing we adjusted last year too was just saying when we noticed we continue to have cell phones at lunches and during different times, a lot of the problem was around video and recording and students doing some pretty mean things sometimes with that. So we just said, no recording at school with your cell phone. They all have Chromebooks, so their school projects and things, they need recordings to be done on there. So that's something that took a little adjustment last year for a lot of students because they love doing their TikToks at lunch and doing all their things and watching YouTube. But they've kind of learned that and gotten that. There's not a lot of issues around that anymore. I would say lunchtime is still where it pops up occasionally, where we get some talks about people texting each other or asking each other to take their cell phone.
Thank you.
Similar to Brooke at Club River Gorge Elementary, we're not having a large issue with cell phone usage or them being out and about. They're tucked away in backpacks if the students do have them. We do have students that have worn watches, and so we've talked about that because it impacts, they can't be having those at state testing, and we just want to talk about working through our safety protocols around that so that we have a central communication in the event of an emergency and our students aren't accessing that, which could be ringing or could be alerting people of danger in those kind of sensitive situations. And so basically we're trying to help our kids know you can access home and how to ask for that and how to support them in the office with that access and that communication if and when that's needed during a school day, so that it's not something they feel like they need to hide away in their backpack and try to call home, but that we are advocating for them if they need to reach out to home for anything, that we can do that through the office and helping to teach them those protocols and routines, and hopefully we continue to not have it be a concern at the elementary level.
Thank you.
So I've kind of been on both sides. I've worked secondary and I've worked elementary. And we don't have it's similar to Brooke and Hannah. We don't have a huge issue with cell phones. It probably happens more in 4th or 5th grade that they come my way, but not too often. And we do have the same policy. It stays in your backpack or it gets turned into the teacher or the office if it's misused. And I reach out to the parents and have that conversation as well. The watches have become more of an issue at elementary. I did have one family this year that really struggled because they were tracking their student. It was a safety thing for them. So having to navigate through that to reassure them has been part of that. But I know at secondary, there's pros and cons, and it definitely can be detrimental with what goes on in those devices. It probably consumed a good chunk of my day as an associate principal, dealing with just stuff that comes across those devices all day long. So that part has been hard to navigate. So yeah, it's challenging to say the least, but we do have that policy of they get put away. Watches, they can have them on as long as they're not interacting with families at home. So because I'm real clear that comes through the school communication home. So yeah,
Thank you.
pretty successful.
Yeah, I think this year I've seen one phone out went through middle school, which is pretty impressive. I think we've got a total of less than 5 violations. I think part of it has been our approach. We've sent out emails to parents about why we're doing this. We've explained it's not just cell phones are bad, but we want the kids to have a balanced life. And then we've provided information about how cell phones can be impactful. You saw today, I sent you an email about some of the lessons we're doing to show what, cell phones are going to be part of your life, but how can you balance it so you can still have a regular life? So you're not sitting in front of this screen your whole life. And we'll continue to do that work with the kids. And so I think our approach hasn't been, when we're doing it to them, we're doing it with them to show them how to support them. And I've been so impressed with the kids because they basically said, okay, that makes sense. And so we're going to do that. And so they've done very well. And the other thing too, we had to talk, I think Jake, that's mentioned it too, is we talked at the start of the year about enforcement and fidelity to rules. And so we have classroom expectations, 5 or 6 of them, cell phones, one of them, and we've said to our teachers, you can't be the good guy and give them breaks. We have to be consistent. And I think that's really helped the teachers. And because when one teacher lets them up and lets everyone else down, it makes the other teacher the bad guy. And so we said, don't make anyone the bad guy. And so our teachers have helped keep each other accountable. It's funny, the other day I saw a cell phone on a kid and I said, I was going to give him a warning. I said, no, because the teachers will hold me accountable. No, you want attention. And so that's really helped because everywhere they go, it's very consistent. The results of it, obviously, we have high parent support for it. Kids have jumped on board. We're seeing some real positive things about that, such as we're seeing less issues in bathrooms because kids aren't coordinating anymore. So we're seeing a lot. We haven't seen any vaping really. So the vaping is being very little because they're not communicating. We're seeing kids concentrate again because we just felt like we're working hard in PLC work to get things going well, but kids aren't concentrating. They're looking at their phones again. And so we made some adjustments to classrooms. We made adjustments to cell phone policy. So when you go into the classroom, you actually see kids concentrating now. So that's been really powerful as well. So as I said, bathrooms have been much better. So there's a lot of good things. The other thing I'm noticing is you think like these kids be starving for their phone at lunchtime. So as soon as they get out, all these phones coming out, and you're not seeing that. You're actually seeing kids playing, they're having conversation. And it's almost seen as weird now when you see a bunch of kids just sitting there at the table. We still see it doing this. And everyone's like, what are you doing? Let's go play. And so that's changed as well. So I'm very pleased with just how kids have adapted to that. Been great. Thank you.
I'd say probably the biggest change at the high school, when you heard about how excited our students were about it. But I'm seeing this similar things as David, more concentration in class. Last year, we said we didn't want them out, but I kind of left it up to teachers a little bit. Some people had with Chromebook, we use our Chromebooks so much that the kids don't charge them and the batteries die and they don't bring their charger and all these things. So a lot of times teachers are like, well, just get on your phone and do the activity on your phone because I'd rather have you participating in the activity rather than saying you're not. So we eliminated that as an option this year. And I thought it was going to be actually quite a bit more challenging than it has been. I've only had 2 big conflicts over it where it was myself and a parent for quite some time, most of my day negotiating how we're going to handle that phone that day and in the future. And the rest of the it's been much smoother. I think we collect probably 5 to 10 phones a day. The kids are given a reminder. They have the option just to turn it into their teacher. If I walk into the teacher's asking to put it in the front of the room, if I walk into a classroom and I see it out, I just stick my hand out at this point. Kids just start giving it to me. It's in the office. You can pick it up at the end of the day. And that's just kind of what they know. They know the expectation at this point. I think we need to continue to be a little more consistent. On Wednesday, I'm going to reinforce that with our staff that we've got to be consistent on it. I'm seeing they're pretty sneaky. They want to pull it out like this, and some people are just kind of, as soon as we stop giving up on that, again, it makes one person the bad guy, one person the good guy. Expectations in their bag, and they're not supposed to have it out during class at all, even if they use the restroom. But we're starting to see some in the hallways a little more. Kids know if we see it in the hallway that at this point we're asking them to give it to us as well. And I think we need to do a little more parent communication again, reminding parents, please go through the office, not call or text your kid, or set the expectation that if you do, you're not expecting a reply until passing time or after school or at lunch. You know, everybody feels they have to immediately respond to something that's like, well, it's in your bag, it's supposed to be, you wouldn't even know that, right? And so, but we're also not, you know, the phone is not the primary objective of the classroom, right? Learning is. So if the student keeps it away in a place and they aren't accessing it, we're not going to pat students down as they come into the classroom or point something out, right? So it's expected to be put away, and then we're dealing with a student by student basis on if it's an issue. But I feel like it's going pretty well. I thought it was going to be quite a bit more challenging based on some experiences last year, but I think kind of same thing David and Jake were talking about is the communication out to the parents on the why we're doing it. I think our bullying and harassment is down. I would say that 90% of bullying and harassment in our school starts on social media. Now we're still getting it, the fun parts that come into school after hours, but during the school, I feel like that's down. You talked about safety. I think that our bathrooms were a primary safety concern for students last year. I feel like our between that and our digital pass system that we're using, we're seeing much less problems in the bathrooms being used that they're supposed to be. I think some kids were not thrilled about the digital pass system, but some are starting to see that it's actually benefiting them because they can actually access the facilities like they're supposed to be able to use them. And that we're on top of it and we're aware of what's going on. So they're seeing that the students that are doing things that they're supposed to be doing are keeping all the same freedoms and that they would typically have, and the students that might be pushing some boundaries are the ones getting the pressure and losing some responsibility. So I think that the combination of those two has been a real benefit so far this year.
Questions? Thank you, Mark.
Yes, today we had listening tour where we had staff come. We did that also last year, and I had a high school teacher at my table and said he had 147, I think that was the number, incidents of kids with cell phones. And my question is, what feedback are you getting from teachers as far as how well this is working? Your changes?
So far, I've had a lot of positive feedback. The teachers, they like it. I feel like we're the system that we put really clear steps in for our teachers. So it wasn't, they were like, what happens? So step one, beginning class, we've been reinforcing the expectation of beginning class. Step two, I'm going to ask you to put away if I see it. And then by this point of the year, it's just if I see it out, you need to put it in the phone caddy, or you need to put it in the secure in this place in the class. And then if the student refuses, we just go pick them up and the cell phone gets picked up, or the student comes down to the office, depending on kind of compliance at that moment. And then we discuss it there. So I think that the really clear steps that everybody's supposed to follow has been positive for teachers. I think. I mean, I've got a couple here probably. Jay's giving a thumbs up, so I think that Jay, some of the people are very frustrated with it. It's not perfect, but I think they're feeling that they're getting the support they would like out of security administration and the policy.
Our policy talks to telecommunication devices, but it does not address watches. And are you all seeing a problem with the smartwatches? Not so much at the secondary level.
I've heard a little bit from some teachers that that's a growing concern. Yeah, so I would actually consider it a telecommunication device if your smartwatch is able to then text and access the internet. We treat it as the same as the rest of the policy.
Yeah, our policy says, including but not limited to pagers, beepers, and cellular phones.
So we could probably eliminate pagers.
Yeah, probably. I'm thinking about maybe
Put my beeper away last weekend.
changing pagers to watches.
Yes.
For beepers.
Yeah, I think that the watches kind of present a different challenge altogether because I was checking the time, so right, and for the purpose of they're not scrolling through watching social media and typing Snapchatting and pictures and all this different stuff on there. So it's texting and it's quite a bit more obvious when we're out doing this. So I think, yeah, I think does present some challenges, but not the same level of distraction.
Yeah.
As kids getting.
We're just
Which
looking
really
at
is the big idea, right? Can we mitigate some of these distractions so students are focused on learning, which involves working collaboratively, discussing, I mean, we're today
Yep.
from a teacher, like how important that is. So that's the big idea, is to mitigate those distractions. The idea of a securely hall pass system is to mitigate what was a problem, what students were rendezvousing. They were going to the bathroom, they were using the restrooms for different purpose than what was intended. We're hearing like structure, expectations, communicating, and follow through and consistency. So that's so important. And I think the idea has been mentioned multiple times. If you're the only person who's enforcing that or has that expectation, it's really challenging if others are not. So being consistent across the building and then the system. So through 6th grade through 12th grade, they talked about this. They discussed in August, how are we going to do cell phone support and what's that going to look like? So definitely appreciate that communication. David has provided you with some more context. The poster, just like celebrating, thank you, students, a reward for meeting our expectations.
Yeah.
It's going to need to continue. If any of us thought this was not going to be a challenge, we were setting ourselves up to be
not gonna be
disappointed
perfect.
because it's a big challenge. It's something across the country. It's happening. I appreciate our approach to it. It was more organic. It was you identified it. You've been putting it together, and we're going to hear from parents who are families who are not necessarily happy completely with it, but working with them to understand what their concerns are.
And can I add something?
Yeah.
I think the academic learning is a huge piece, but the social emotional, because it was damaging to some of our students. So it's the whole picture there that could be social emotional damaging by using those devices in that way. So.
And that gets into our policy, about 90% of it. Well, the policy is in two prongs. One of them is cell phones and how they're distracted. But 90% of it is on content in our policy. And my question is, are you seeing a lot of content issues, sexting and so forth?
I would say we have issues with sexting, and we've had that, and I think this year we have not had the same concerns. So, but I'm glad you brought it up because I think I am very worried about the mental health these devices cause. I mean, you sort of read through Anxious Generation talks about since 2012, since the smartphone, how many kids, the decline in kids have, the increase in mental health issues. I think it has made a significant difference this year, and I'm not seeing the same catastrophic things that happen to kids because of cell phones this year. And I would say it's catastrophic. It's sexting and stuff like that can be very damaging to our kids. So that's good.
Yeah, it's the bullying and
the
those kinds of things that
type things
I would think would be a concern.
And what we've heard from students, we heard our students mention, I spoke with 4 students today as the high school, and it was myself and these 4 individuals, and 2 of them were appreciative. And shared that it really wasn't something, they weren't really using their cell phones previously. I think the appreciation that it's consistent, and I think they're saying there's less distractions.
Yes, good.
Students even more focused. And I don't know if they would say that out public, with several peers around them, but I do think we're heading the right direction.
Good.
I think one more thing too, we are also trying to push too that your kids they do so many amazing things every day. They can solve their problems at school. And this whole idea that as soon as the kids are in trouble, that they need their mum and dad, they don't. They can do it. And I think we have to continue teaching our parents, let them solve their problems. You have no idea what the amazing they do every day and how they solve their problems. Let them keep doing it. In my opinion, when I've seen some of the parents who get worried about cell phones, they have the anxiety. Yeah. They're the worry, and they're afraid to let go. And so we've got to support those parents as well, saying, let them do it. It's okay. So we have to build resiliency in this generation.
Your email that you sent out was spot on. And I think it made me take a step back and go, oh yeah, a lot of that is the parents being so concerned about what we're not seeing or hearing or, how we can fix something, but that's what you guys are there for.
Well, that's also their own growth.
And their own growth and what they do between each other and not having a parent always there on demand.
Anything more from a policy standpoint that we can do to support your efforts?
Maybe very popular idea, but I think we still have them during lunchtime. Are we going to go to the next step and just say they're gone? Start a day, end of day. Are we get to that point where we just say, but right now we allow them at lunchtime? And do we want to go to the next point and say not at all?
What do you think?
I would prefer them not to be there. I also know that sometimes kids need to check in to see, like after school activities. I was thinking like high school, for example, sometimes kids get their work schedule in the middle of the day. So when would they check to see what's going on? There's a good article about high school recently. So is there a time where kids may want to check in? There might be something where, something happens after school and the kid's not supposed to ride the bus. And then they can always call the parents. They can always call the office and do that. That's another way. So I am 90% on board of getting rid of them the whole day, but I also understand, especially at the high school level, there may be some kids where they are running their schedules and doing a lot of their own thing independently that may be checking in. It would be beneficial to them. I'm speaking, just
Yeah, I'm not for taking them away at lunch. I think there's still an element of we are teaching people to be young. They're young adults. We're teaching the adults. We want to manage their time. I think if we tell them, you're just like when you go to work, here's when you're supposed to work. Here's where your time to eat lunch and get other things to do. And now it's time to go back to work. You got to put these things away. And as long as we're not seeing them out filming and doing things like this, then I'm for teaching them responsible use. We tried that. I tried telling them last year, said we tried to give you guys the option to make good decisions during the school day, like during class,
Right.
and you weren't able to do that. So now we got to put these rules in place. And also, it could be partially selfish. Is I don't think I have the time to monitor that. Imagine
That's a big
400 kids out all over your school, and then it's like, well, they get to do it in their car and I don't, and they get to leave campus and I don't. So there's some of it's probably a little bit selfish in that respect, but I think the bigger piece for me is that I think if we're telling them that's their downtime and they do need to check in, they do check for work, they do contact parents, they do arrange rides after school and all those different things. I think that's an appropriate time for them to go.
I think too, we would have legal problems if we try to limit cell phones very much.
It also keeps us in good stead with the parents to say, look, we are, so this is your time to call if you need to get a message. And so I think our families have responded well to that and said, okay, we'll support you in your decision, but if you let us call your kid at lunchtime, and we'll see kids talking to their parents on the phone at that time. So that seems to be okay. The other thing is, I haven't seen the issues at lunchtime that I thought I might see, so they are being responsible. So
I would say I am seeing some issues at lunchtime, and I would probably be all for getting rid of them at lunch.
What issues are you seeing?
So that is when we still continue to see some bullying and harassment that happens. So texting of things that have happened from people at lunch, sometimes to people not even at our school, but it still comes my way. I think that's when we still see some videoing or recordings happening that we'd rather not have. Additionally, I think when they don't have them, what I tend to see is more of the interaction. So more of that social emotional piece that kids are actually using them more, like they're getting out at recess more. They're doing more of that interacting. I also don't really see a benefit to them because they have a Chromebook right now. And so I can't say that there's any reason for them to have this unregulated device at school when they have one that is somewhat more protected from their access to the internet, as well as a way that parents can get a hold of them at any time, both through their school account and through our phones in office. And we have a system where we allow students to come to the office at any point to use their phones or call their parents. So we put in place some things where if they need messages or they need to talk to their parents, we have places and times for them to do that. And so we don't see this like they're getting a benefit out of having them at lunch, other than some kids hide behind them and don't interact with each other. And then a handful sometimes do things we'd rather not have any kids do.
And you do have the ammunition in our policy for those who are doing things that you'd rather they not do, the bullying.
Yeah,
Such thing,
there are
those things.
policies that address that,
Yeah.
and we address those instances.
Good.
On this, another side note, for elementary, we don't have those same issues, but I would say if you're looking at policy across the board in schools, it is kind of nice. Sometimes we have certain students, when they're on the bus, they have sensory issues. So they'll often wear their headphones and play a game, and that's eliminated some, and David could probably see some of the activity that goes on in the bus. So in that way, it has been helpful. But once they get to school on the site, then it goes away. But when you're looking at policy across the board, I've seen kids do really well in elementary on being able to play something to tune out the noise on the bus to be more successful. So
I'd agree with the bus thing, so I know there's a lot of students in Cape Canyon who have very long bus rides,
Right.
and that's
yeah.
something that's actually a benefit for them. And I would also say that I think high school is a very different animal.
Right.
You're talking about age and responsibility for devices.
Yeah. Mark, I'd say it's not selfish, it's pragmatic.
Yeah.
Your need to, or your, your position there on lunch use in the high school. I think I appreciate that the role of that this one issue can play in helping them develop responsible behavior for life. Yeah. Also, thank you all for what must feel like a thankless job a lot of the time. And I know we don't have much time probably, or we don't want to take that much time, but of your time. But are there any big concerns you have looking at this school year that we brought up cell phones just kind of out of the blue because I read some stuff for the summer and other people did, but are there some big concerns that we as the board should know about moving into this 24-25 school year? Good, right answer.
I would say this is the best start since COVID.
Great.
It's been a great start. For me, grade 6 through 8, I think this is the most focused group I've had since, and no fault to any kids. It's been like, this seems to be the most focused on path group that I had. So this is exciting this year.
All right. Thank you so much. You are
Thank you.
free to go. You want to stay, if you want to stay. I'll fill you on how.
We do appreciate you guys.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Use more professional, but it was beer day for home.
We like the Shook Nation. We like it.
Where do I get a Shib Nation shirt?
I know, I'm
Right?
like, get one of those.
At the football game.
Okay.
Right now, on this table.
Yeah.
Yeah, right next to the stadium.
All right. Next up, we have a transportation update.
Yes, David Sal, please.
Come on up,
Here.
front and center.
Yeah, so David is our transportation supervisor. So if you just think for a moment,
Big job.
our buses, yes, all of our buses. And the staff that support those, fixing those buses, maintaining those buses, driving those buses, organizing those buses, their dispatch. So David will talk about the staff and the transportation department. The building is right behind us, and that's where our buses are parked. David has been with us, is this year 3 or your 4? Year 4. David has been with us for 4 years, and I've had the privilege to work with him for that time in a different role than now. Whatever the role is, I've appreciated David's his work, his experience, his dedication to this district, to transportation. He's very well connected across the state with OSBI. He understands the regulations. He does a really good job in training. He was a trainer. He was a driver. At different times, you may see a bus and David's driving the bus. This was the other day. I was passing on a really kind of narrow road and I looked up and it was David Sal who was driving. And so I really appreciate, again, his willingness to do that. I know his staff appreciates his willingness to do that when it's needed. So he's done a great job. We appreciate all that he does. and supporting the staff and supporting our students, our staff. And again, our students, the first person they see, those that ride the bus, first educator they see are our bus drivers. And they're the last ones that they see. And David invited me a couple weeks ago, hey, you want to ride the bus? I got a route, guys route. I said, sure, yeah, that'd be great. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you for that experience. Now, it was about a 25-minute ride. So I don't know if it was like an hour and a half, which is why some of those long distance and then comes back. I don't know, I enjoyed that so much. So David.
Yeah, that was mostly in town.
Yeah, that's right, what in town.
Yeah.
Yes, and so I was actually, Chuck, you asked, can we hear from our transportation supervisor? You know, I don't know that everyone has met him, and there were some specific things that you were kind of wondering about regarding the routes and the stops, and how is that determined? So David has a variety of things you're going to share with us.
Okay, well, thanks for having me here. I don't think I've met any of you except maybe Jim and I spent a little bit of time last year at
One of those tables, yeah.
listening tours last year. So anyway, it's so nice to see you again. Anyway, but like Aaron said, this is my 4th year here, and the department as a whole, the biggest number, like everywhere, every building, is staffing. You know, our whole district is based on staffing, and there's a total of 38 staff members in transportation. Out of those, 32 are bus drivers, and we have 1 mechanic, a mechanic helper, 2 driver trainers, which me being one of them as well. So, and I'm still a driver trainer beyond just being a driver as well. And then we have 2 dispatchers as well, for a total of 38. Out of those 32 bus drivers, there's about 25 regular drivers, meaning that they have a regular morning and a regular 8 p.m. route as well for take home. And we have 7 substitutes. So everybody knock on wood. First of all, I don't think there's too many districts in the state that can say that they have that ratio of substitutes to their regular drivers. Out of our 7, really 4 or 5 of them are regular, wanting to work and wanting to get a regular route. There's a couple of 3 that are just emergency type, kind of partial, part-time substitutes, but we still need those. So out of the 38 people that we have, dispatchers, mechanic, and so forth, every one of us all have a CDL. We have a Class B CDL. We can drive anything just about up to a concrete truck. The only thing we can't do is pull a trailer, like a semi, which is a Class A license that you have to have. So in a dire situation, we could have up to about 40 buses out there, but fortunately, we don't always have to have that. So anyway, I think that over the course of the last 3 years since I've been here, the biggest challenge has been staffing and the lack of drivers overall. When I first arrived here the first year, we were too short of fulfilling all of our regular routes. In other words, we didn't even have those 2 substitutes to even cover those. And so mechanics drove, dispatchers drove, I drove. My first warehouse guy also drove. Yeah. So a lot of people filled in to drive, and our of course our goal, our purpose here is to provide to and from transportation to the school buildings safely for all of these kids that we transport. Additionally to that, we also have extracurricular activities. For instance, today, unfortunately, we have 4 drivers out ill, and we had 5 field trips of one kind or another going out in various different places. So it is every single day a puzzle to put together to try to make sure that we cover everything that everybody's needs are. So far, we have not had to say no to anybody yet. We've been able to cover all of the athletics. We've been able to cover all the field trips, and we haven't left any students at home or at school not being able to transport them. So those are the good things that are happening. And we don't have a huge market here. for recruitment. You know, the demographics of a bus driver, a school bus driver, is typically you're retired, but not really quite ready to retire, and you want to do something. My story, pretty much. I retired from the construction industry, and I was living up in the Puget Sound area, and I wanted to get involved in the community, so I decided bus driving was the place to start, and one thing led to another, and here I am, right? So, story of our lives. And the second demographic that we have is probably moms or parents that have their kids now are old enough to go to school, and now they have some time, and their schedule, they want their schedules to match with their kids' schedules, school wise, holiday wise, and all that kind of stuff. So those are kind of the two major areas that we are able to recruit from. And we do recruit by, you guys probably have seen the bus down on the old bus barn with the signage about needing bus drivers. And we have gone to a couple of job fairs, but they're not really productive, to be honest with you. I think the two areas, the signage is important for people to know that we're looking for drivers, and word of mouth is probably as much as anything else. We have a couple of drivers that recruited their own family to be drivers as well. So that's not unusual within our community as well. So it is a rigorous process to become a Class B school bus driver. It's Mr. Hansen here has indicated his interest in wanting to be able to have that license, although I haven't seen too many movement in that direction yet. So, but
Maybe we should
all
do
talk
that
about
together.
that.
yeah, it's all of that. But these guys go through a pretty rigorous effort to train with us. Most of them spend about 100 hours of training time to become a bus driver. There's three basic sections. There's the classroom section that they have spent 30 or 40 hours at. There's 20 or 30 hours on the road driving the bus, learning how to drive the bus. And there's 20 or 30 hours of learning about the bus, every piece of equipment on that bus, so they can repeat it to the skills examiner, which is at the end of all of this training, they have about a 2-hour exam with Washington DOL in 3 different categories to get your Class B license. And once you have your Class B license, our substitutes also go through about 10 to 20 hours of on-road training with students in the bus with another driver that's a regular driver on that route, to learn routes, to learn student management, to learn a number of different things that's more practical, day-to-day on the job kind of stuff. Because all of the 100 hours they spend, there's no students in that bus. The difference between an empty bus and a full bus is dramatic. So you can imagine 30, 40, 50 kids on a bus versus just the empty bus with you and a trainer is going to be a different experience for you, right? So anyway, speaking of recruitment, any of you that are interested?
Should we all just go for it?
Just go for it, yeah.
Talk in our life.
Exactly.
You saw me drive, you understand.
Yeah, I'm like,
So the very first thing we teach you is how to back up a bus. So that's the
I'm
first
out
thing.
there.
So, and once you get that figured out, there's nothing else that's not going to be that tough. So, but we also do tell our drivers that we're training that driving the bus will ultimately be the least thing for you to worry about. That is going to come to you naturally. It's going to be a muscle memory. It's going to be a lot of things that you normally already do as a driver and so forth. Managing the students, it's a different ball game. And sometimes you'll have a route that is very well behaved. Other times you have a route that is total chaos all the time. And you can't tell from day to day what you're going to get. And so those are some of the challenges that our bus drivers all go through. And we've had drivers come in just, what a terrific day we had, and it was just so wonderful. And then we had drivers come in practically in tears because the atmosphere it was just
Not a good day.
it was not a good thing. It was just a bad day all the way around. And so, it's like what I told one of our drivers this afternoon is that, leave it here don't take it home with you. Tomorrow will be a different day. And hopefully it'll be a better day. So anyway, so I think one of the things that Aaron wanted to discuss a little bit was about how do we determine our routes and how do we, just what exactly does that process involve? It starts with the boundaries of each one of the schools, obviously. And within those boundaries, we get enrollment. And with the enrollment, we'll have addresses and everything else. And that's kind of how the routes start to get developed that way a little bit. A couple of criteria that we look at, obviously, are how many kids are on the bus. Even though these buses are designed, you could have as many as 84 kids on one of these big buses. But if you can imagine 84, even elementary school kids, that would be a lot of kids to be on a bus. And we tend to try to keep the middle to high school high school routes down to no more than 50, because that's kind of a 2 to a seat sort of a thing. And anything beyond that is really hard. Because a lot of them are adult size and it just gets to be difficult. The second thing is that we have a unique terrain here, geography, that we have one school that's quite a far out, and upriver there's a lot of distance all the way into Skamania County, which I'm sure you're aware of. And given that, the amount of time you're on a bus, a student is on a bus, becomes a factor as well. Even though we may only have 5 kids on Maybe Mines or 5 kids up at Dugan Falls, if we have a bus that goes to all of these places, they'd be on the bus for 2.5 hours. That just doesn't work. So, even though we don't transport near as many kids up for the Cape schools, we still have 7 or 8 buses up there to service because of the distances that we're involved with up there. Whereas down here, each one of the elementary schools, I believe, had 4 buses, and the high school, I think it's a combination of, but they have like 13 routes or something like that. But so it is a puzzle, and this goes back to where the administration works with us in terms of what is the bell time that happens up at Cape and what is the bell time down here, and can we get those Cape kids home at the right time so we can also have people to drive the routes down here. So it is a kind of a jigsaw that's it can be challenging to put together. But I will say, given that this is my 4th year here, and most of the staff that we have in the office is relatively new. Within the last couple of 3 years, they've been relatively new, dispatcher, router, and so forth. And this has been easily the easiest, the most smoothest start that we've had to the school year. I haven't had an administrator or teacher tell me yet, like a couple of years ago, how can you possibly start the school like this? That sort of thing. But anyway, it tells me that we are doing a better job. We have more experienced people, but there is a fair amount of turnover. Half of the drivers, just about almost 50% of the drivers are new to our district within the last 3 to 4 years. But the good news is that we don't tend to have a lot of attrition. There's usually a couple people that might be thinking about retirement, or because of medical issues or whatever happens to be, they do end up leaving. And then fortunately, we have enough substitutes at this particular juncture that we're able to, those people really want regular routes anyway, and we're able to give that to them. Now, we have lost a couple of people. It's kind of one of those weird catch-22s type things. We train people because if we see that they're able to be a school bus driver, we train them. That doesn't mean we necessarily retain them. 50% retention of the people you train is usually statewide, kind of what you get out of it. We've been fortunate that we've been able to retain more than that. Most of our people have come from the Washougal area, and so they want to stay here, or they have family here, or they have kids in the system, or whatever it happens to be. But we have lost a couple of 3 drivers to Camas and another driver to Vancouver, only because they have open regular routes available for substitutes to take, whereas We currently don't have that. We've downsized our routes a little bit so that we have a little tighter control, revenue wise and everything else associated with the routes. And so we do have substitutes. So it's hard to hang on to substitutes because once they get their credentials, they can go anywhere in the state and work. It's one of those, it's a pretty valuable thing for these guys to have. And so we have to create an environment that they want to be here. We have to choose people that want to be in this community more so than just somebody who wants to get their license. So that's a challenge that we deal with. So it's not anything that we can't solve, but it's trying to find the demographics of the people willing to do this work, because it's like you said, a lot of, for teachers, principals, administrators, bus drivers, some days it feels pretty thankless, right? Yeah, so it happens. So, but and the other thing I wanted to let you know a little bit about is that when I took this job, I knew that I was going to I came from a district that was a little bit more affluent, and it was actually a little bit bigger district, but there was less students transported. This district, actually, we transport a higher percentage of students to schools than most districts in Washington State does. So it's a little bit different that way. Part of it is the smallness of the community and where the proximity of the schools and even the economics play a role in that, I think, as well. But I didn't realize that I had to be a meteorologist as well.
Oh, yeah.
When they told me about this job. I mean, the whole deal is that we have two distinct weather patterns, upriver, and then of course we have down here. So what happens down here at 400 or 500 feet at sea level or whatever it's close to, and what happens at 1,500 feet elevation is dramatically different as we get into November, December, into the winter here. So Aaron's going to get intimately involved in that this year. He'll be receiving phone calls, somewhere around 5 o'clock in the morning or 4:30, and we're going to make some decisions about whether we're going to go to school. We're going to have a late start or whatever. One of the positive things that we've done in the last starting last year was that, and this was actually a kudo to, I think Mary was really instrumental as well, is that she and I talked about how can we, we had those so many snow days a couple of years ago. How can we change that? And one of the changes we made was that we're no longer going to drive the upper elevations of Sky Road for snow routes. It is dramatically different at the top of Sky than it is out on River Road. So what we're saying is that those 200 or 250 students impacted shouldn't be impacting the other 3,000 students or 2,500 students that we have down here from a weather standpoint. So what we've done is last year we changed our snow routes to where we mostly travel below 500 foot elevations, and therefore we're able to have schools open maybe a little bit more than perhaps previous years beyond that. Now, we still will have some days like last year. We had 3 or 4 days where it was iced in everywhere down to sea level. Those days, there's nothing you can do about. We're going to be dealing with that no matter what. The whole Southwest is going to be dealing with that.
Right.
But hopefully, what happens with this change is that we're able to maybe have a couple of more late start days, which still counts as a school day versus having a snow day, because we can't take a bus to go up to Sky Road and so forth. Our drivers do get training. We review winter driving every year, and we do have drop down chains that help with snow, but they do very little for ice. As you can imagine, as the size of the bus, there's only chains in the back. And it may improve some traction and so forth, but there's nothing that keeps you from steering in the front if you have slippery conditions and that sort of thing. So it's a pretty good challenge. So on those days, there's 3 of us, me included. We We drive all of our routes within the upper elevations and we try to collectively make a decision. Can we go right now? Can we go 2 hours later? Can we, what is it can we do? And then we talk with our superintendent and make a decision from there.
I'll be including the executive team.
Oh, you want to do that too? Okay, all right. Make sure they're available at 5 o'clock, is that right?
That was 4:30.
4:30, 4:30, all right.
Guys over there.
I know.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
In terms of those higher elevation families, is there a way to have pickup points that are down at 500?
we do
Yeah,
have
okay.
pickup points down below on River Road.
Does
like
that work?
At the bottom of Hughes, at the bottom of,
Okay, yeah.
Maybe Mines, at the bottom of, at the hatchery, instead of going all the way up to Dugan and that kind of stuff. So, and it does work.
Yeah.
And, they're able to bring their kids down. Oftentimes their vehicles are more capable with.
I would think so. Yeah.
Those conditions than what our buses are. Those buses, they're pretty big, they're pretty heavy, they stay on the road pretty well, but when it gets slippery, it's
Yeah.
sort of uncontrollable, to be honest with you. So, and when you start thinking about safety and all that kind of stuff, can you imagine a bus running off the
No.
side of the road on Sky Road or something like that? It's just ridiculous to
Yeah.
even think about, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's that part of it, but it is a significant issue for our region because Vancouver doesn't deal with it and Camas really doesn't have quite as much weather as we do here.
Right.
And so it's all related to the west side of the gorge from Skamania County line over.
Yeah.
That west side of the gorge can be really difficult to deal with. And whereas down here, we're typically in pretty good shape. So if you're a parent down here and you're seeing it's raining down here, you say, what the heck's going on? Why don't we have school today? I'm sure that question has come up once or twice.
We've heard it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that.
I'll send pictures this year.
I was gonna say, but
I'll
now,
send pictures.
I
You
love
have
that.
questions, other questions for?
Yeah.
In terms of the issue of having to pick up 5 kids here and then 15 miles away, another 5 kids, have you thought about, or would it be cost effective to have more like 15 passenger vans or something for some of these remote regions that could have even 4-wheel drive or something that would, you need more humans, I guess, to drive, but
Yeah, well,
an 80-person bus to pick
sure.
up 5,
the,
20 miles each
There-
way, yeah.
There aren't too many all-wheel drive buses that I'm aware of. Somebody might make some of those, but I'm not really familiar with how that is. But using vans could be a possibility, I suppose. Yeah, I really haven't thought about that. And one of our challenges will be, though, is that OSPI, the state, sets up our transportation vehicle fund based on yellow buses.
Yeah.
They don't allow us to use it to go buy vans.
Right.
We would like to have 2 or 3 more vans because along with the 32 bus drivers, we also have 25 staff members who are qualified and authorized with OSPI to transport students to extracurricular activities and whatnot else. Well, they could be using vans if we have more vans, but we don't. And unfortunately, our budget doesn't allow us to just go out and buy $100,000 vans and stuff like that. But there is a manufacturer that's working on trying to create a non-CDL vehicle that could be purchased through the TVF. So if that happens with OSPI, we may have a little bit more flexibility in terms of what kind of vehicles we get and that sort of thing. So it's possible.
Well, how about using the little buses in Collins?
The little buses?
Yeah.
Well, they still require a CDL.
Right, but to his question, instead of running a big bus to pick up a few kids, running some small buses, would that be?
I would tell you, the big buses are better in snow than the little buses are. Those little buses are awful in snow.
Okay.
They have a really light back end and it's oftentimes we have to pull those out of a ditch. Whereas the big buses are doing just fine, but those little buses have trouble even on snowy roads and stuff. So that hasn't shown itself to be a good answer at that point. So
Do you use software for routing?
we do. And that's a good thing to bring up to you guys because Our software is several years old, and Les and I have talked about this a little bit, is that we do need to upgrade. We have a software system that's kind of cumbersome. It's a little bit more difficult to use, and it's not as flexible. Most new software systems now are all web-based, and so it can be accessed in much easier form, and the data is easier, and it just new software just easier to use all the way around. And so that's one of those things that I know Aaron and I have talked about, it is that we need to be thinking about projecting when we might be making those kind of investments going forward. So and you can go as far as you want to go. We currently have GPS systems on our buses, so we know where they're located. And we have cameras on our buses, so we can know what's going on, hopefully most of the time. And but there are tablets that are tied into those systems and the routing systems, so that they, first of all, have routing information for the driver, but they also have the ability to know what students are on those buses, when they got on, where they got on, and where they get off. And parents can have software on their phones that tell them when their bus is planned to be arriving at their stop. So all of those things are available, but they all cost money. Yeah. So they all, it's technology at its best, and yet it's expensive given today's climate.
Yeah.
But one last thing I'd like to, after you talked about the cell phone thing, I think Tammy mentioned it, and maybe somebody else also might have mentioned it about cell phones on buses. They create the same chaos on a bus that they do in a lunchroom and/or a classroom or whatever. Kids are even using them. They're using them inappropriately, perhaps. They're taking videos, perhaps. They are wanting to show something to somebody 3 rows over and wanting to get up and do this or that, or they're shouting about this or that. Anyway, they create the same kind of problems on a bus that they do in a school environment as well. What the answer is, I don't know. I did come from a district that did make a decision 2 years ago. Technology is eliminated, is banned on the school buses. And the reason that it happened that way was that we had 2 3rd grade girls call in a swatting event into
Oh my gosh.
one of the schools and had a full response from the FBI and all of that kind of stuff. And they did it with a cell phone. So that kind of stimulated us to eliminate cell phones from school buses. That took care of some of those issues.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if that's a subject you want to take up at some point, but it's
Talk about
one
it.
of those kind of, it's hard to enforce, and
Yeah.
I understand that. So
Yeah. Any other questions?
Quick statement.
Sure. What's that? Go ahead.
I know the routes out of Cape are tough. I just wanted to pass on to you the things, because I've heard from a few parents that their route times have gone down this year. And so I don't know what magic you're working to make that happen for them.
You're driving faster? How's that?
What are you gonna say?
No.
But it's appreciated, and the snow routes and where they're located. they're really
Right.
good, So thank you.
I think
He was joking.
I think one of the things we've tried to do up at Cape, we just recently made a change, actually. We used to have 2 buses, one from Cape and one from the high school, go up to Dugan Falls, which takes 30 minutes,
Yeah.
taking less than 10 kids up there between 2 schools. So we just made a change where we held the Cape kids at the school for about 10 extra minutes or something like that. The high school bus comes up, picks up those guys up, and then that one goes up to Dugan. The bus that used to go up to Dugan is now doing something else and spreading the load out a little bit more, and so that we can get to all the stops a little bit quicker. So there's been a couple of creative things that we've done that's made it a little bit better, but
It's
but
appreciated.
it's good to hear that, yeah. So, but it's still a challenge for those kids up there. It's an hour to be on a bus. It's really a long time to be on a bus. So You know, I've been there, I've done that, so I know what that feels like.
So a couple more thoughts. I forgot to mention, and David mentioned safety, the importance of safety. I went over, because we meet a couple times a month, and I go to his office. So and I watched 3 drivers getting ready for their route and checking all the exit doors and checking the tires. So I think that happens daily.
Yeah, there's a procedure before every route that you have to check your vehicle. Every light has to work, every emergency buzzer has to work. You can't have a flat tire. I mean, you can't have, a number of different things. But this is what's called a pre-trip, and we give them 10 minutes in the morning because sometimes the weather can be kind of overnight, can be a little tougher. And then they have 5 minutes in the afternoon, and whenever your bus is out of service for 2 hours, the state requires you to do a walk around pre-trip. And if you have a light that's out, that bus is out of service, you have to take another bus. And any of those kind of things, they all happen every single day, twice a day in that sense. And then secondly, the other thing that's really important is the post-trip. At the post-trip, we log the drivers log the student counts, which are important to us, and the mileage and all that kind of stuff. But probably the biggest thing is that they all are trained to walk the bus. You go all the way to the back of the bus, make sure we don't leave a sleeping student on the bus.
So I know you know this, the complexity of that job and the importance of having a solid trainer. We have 2 trainers that have done a great job. And you heard, like, anything about, are things going well? What does success look like? That we have as many subs as we do. And we're training them, they're going elsewhere, which is problematic. But it's the reality, and it's probably just part of what happens.
Yeah.
So we appreciate what you do, what your team does in supporting our students. And if you at any point wanna ride on a bus.
I'm not ridden for a while, and
yeah, that's something if you want to get the experience.
Just let me know.
Not the long one, not a domesticate, true experience.
Happy to put you on the bus, but really, Erin is totally right. I don't know how to necessarily fix this, but being a substitute driver for us or any district is one of the toughest jobs you have. You don't always know what route you're going to be on. You don't always know, you don't know the students. Maybe the bus is unfamiliar to you, and we want to pay you the least.
Yeah.
It's a tough job,
Sure.
but someone who has substituted for a number of months ultimately becomes the best bus drivers overall as well. So it's unfortunately it's a training thing, and it's.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of how it goes.
All right, thank you, David.
Yeah,
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate your presentation. All right.
All right, what do we have next? We've got the ends report. I like it. I'm excited.
So if you want to take a moment to stand up.
Yes, please.
Congratulations, we will do that as our team is in place. Thank you. Excellent.
The meeting, I was calling studies.
Yeah, whatever, yeah. Okay.
I'm so
got it.
sorry that I called you June. I looked at you and I was like, do I just call you? Apparently I'm missing summer. I think it's twice too. Yeah, I did it another time too.
Oh, I totally missed it the first time.
I really want to call you June. Sorry.
No stress. I couldn't call you.
I thought we needed one more.
I think he's.
Oh, you're gonna stay with him?
Well, I guess we don't quit.
Fine. Everybody wants to sit by each other. Okay. Miss Tracy, where are your candies? I need some sugar. I looked over there, I was like, where's our candy?
So you all have a copy of the end report, 2 slides per page.
Yep.
And so the executive team is going to present to you the end report, something you've been asking. And so here it is. And I was just kind of thinking about all the different end reports we've had over the last 2 decades and the data points that have been shared, whether in a spreadsheet, in a one-pager, in a presentation. So you're going to hear some data today about our students and how our students are doing. This is not all the data. This is not all the data that we have previously shared. We are waiting for more data from OSBI, so that's just a part of the process.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear details from our principals, so we are giving you all the information, nitty gritty, and getting down to the finer details, because our principals are gonna be sharing that information shortly. So, this is the executive team. Shalice is over there, right there, and so that's the team that we meet once a week. And we talk about a variety of things. We meet in different buildings in the district. We're gonna keep doing that each week. And so I think that is, it's helping me, and I hope it's helping them see what's going on in all of our buildings, specifically in the morning, because that's when we, so we've been working on this presentation. They're gonna share this information. They're gonna, they have a few slides, so we're gonna go get started. Leslie's gonna go ahead and share with you on the screen. So that's the agenda. That's what we're gonna cover. And you're more than welcome to share questions if you could do that. At the end, that would probably be best, because we've been practicing and practicing and practicing. So it might
Raising the bar.
might throw us off. Okay, team.
Go teams.
All right, I guess I get to go first. So it's a pleasure to get to talk to you tonight and spend the last few hours with Chuck at our listening tour. So I'm here to talk to you first about the Washougal School Improvement Framework, which we call WSIF. This is currently, we can think back to 2017 when this came into play. And basically it came into play so that not only the state could be held accountable through our SBAC scores to 3-year cycles of improvement for schools. So you see on that first slide with a couple of our Washougal students, I think they're runners. Those are the areas or the criteria that go into what our scores are for the WSIF. And the biggest percentage, the biggest indicator of that is our scores on the SBAC, which is the Smarter Balance Assessment, which is the standardized test that we take every spring. But these are also elements that go into what that score will be. Go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. On those scores, what they indicate is we're scored on a scale of a 1 to 10 score. And what it does is that every year there's a threshold when you think of taking into consideration growth and proficiency. You think about attendance, you think about 9th grade being on track for graduation. How are some of our subgroups of students doing? Are students that receive English language services, students that are identified as needing support with an IEP, and also calculates out students who receive have a free reduced lunch rate. So we look at that as well. So we also look at graduation. We look at kids who's taking dual credit. And also there is a component of extra credit for graduation. All those elements get put in and then we're scored on that. Now, it started in 2017 on a 3-year cycle. And we all know what happened in 2020. So they were into the cycle for 2 years and then it stopped. So that was actually now we call cycle 2 because it was only a 2-year process. So last year was the first year they brought it back in its entirety. This is actually the 22-23 school years when they brought it back. So spring of 22. It was indicated to us that if your school has 2 subgroups of students that do not meet the threshold, they are indicated as a school in improvement. And we actually did have one school, Hathaway, that didn't make that cut score. In both their students receiving ELL support and also their students receiving IEPs. So they were on a list with the state, and then we received funding through that. Hathaway got a little bit of funding. Wendy developed a plan, and we are happy to report that actually after only 1 year, she actually became out of a school of improvement because she significantly focused. And what our coach, we get a coach through all of this as well. Her name is Kate Stetzner with, it's the Office of School OSSI. And school improvement. Yes, but it's the Office for the Superintendent of School Improvement. There's an acronym for that, sorry. They did well. They were able to increase their scores. They had a lot of focus and attention. So this year, go to the next slide. This is on your slide. This is a picture of Canyon Creeks, and it's just a snapshot of what that data looks like in its entirety. And what you want to see is their 3-year runs. So there's trend data on there, and you want to see more gray and less orange. So you can see in Canyon Creek's case, and actually 2 of our schools last year were identified as they got accolades for exceeding their where they were and their progress. And that was Canyon Creek and also CRGE. However, this year, CRGE finds themselves in the same situation as Hathaway last year and does GAUS. So we are, and in different cells of students. So we know that when you guys will listen to the school improvement plans in a couple of weeks, elementary is on the 22nd, and then secondary is on the 12th of November. They will speak specifically as to what their plans are for those subgroups of students. So.
And this is last year's,
Right.
and we got these in the spring, so we're patiently waiting for 23, 24 to populate and see the changes. So we just, this is an example, we don't have the data from OSBI, we can't really, we generate this or create it based off of our scores that we have, so we just have to wait.
Did that translate into state support in those, for those other
Yes, it
schools?
absolutely did. Yes. Now, the difference, Jim, will be Wendy had an opportunity to get those funds for 1 year, and then she actually she got the choice to stay in improvement. It's a different level.
Yeah.
But she gets the same funding again so that she can continue the work she started. And they're only doing that on the case where it was kind of in between with COVID. So now that GAUS and CRGE are in that cycle, they will be in that cycle for 3 years and be eligible for that funding. Everybody gets a little snippet. It depends. Your funding across the state, some schools get tremendously more than we did. We actually get the least amount per school, but yes. I wanted to stop you. I know Aaron said to wait till the end to ask questions, but
sorry.
I went, no. I wasn't, I mean that. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear about what WSIF was and that you have some understanding of that. Any other questions about that?
I guess I'm just trying to understand like the timing. So like the students get tested in the spring, then you get the results, and then that feeds the determination. And then when you get put on the list and then the funding, is that the next one?
So the students that tested in the spring, just this past spring of May of 2024, we won't know about those results until about the beginning of March. We will find out, yes, we will find out when this data.
We have the smarter balance scores, we have the graduation rate, we have all the pieces that's going to encompass the score, but we don't see the score, and we won't see the update of this document, and then whether we're on the list or off the list, or what schools are on or off, until.
So it's like an entire year of missed opportunity.
Right.
Where you don't even know.
Well, and
we're planning based on, planning based on these scores, like that's what the principals are talking about. how they're adjusting based on our scores. But you're right, as far as that funding, that doesn't happen till
Oh, so we know,
we know the scores.
Scores.
Yeah,
we just don't.
yeah.
We usually will get some of the scores that we actually get them quite quick now compared to in years past. We will start to get some scores 3, 5, 7 days after the student has taken the test. We won't get all of them, and we won't get all the details of them until later. Yes.
You know which students are struggling
Which groups?
fairly quickly.
Yes, and we actually have to report what summer school, we usually have a little pot of money that we save
Mhm.
through teaching and learning so that we can offer summer school. And we have to offer that to third grade students
Mhm.
that are at risk of not passing the SBAC. So those students have to be kind of the first group that goes through so that we can get those, yes, get that information as quickly as possible.
Fortunately, we don't get the money until a year later, but
Correct.
So now we're gonna go through specific scores by third grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade, and then for each academy.
So you'll see on the first slide, and that's, some good news, some, good news as far as ELA goes. We know that was a lot of our attention was to third grade reading. We saw a dip last year with third grade, but we also saw some really compelling improvement in 10th grade. So there were some things that we did, some intentional things at the high school. We changed some of the testing environment. We did some different kinds of things, and we were happy with the results. We still have a lot of room to grow. There's still a lot of opportunity, and that still remains our focus.
Tracy, what are the percentages? These are the percentage of kids that pass, or what is
Correct.
this percent? Okay.
And Jim, that's a really good question, because I'm gonna, in a couple slides, I'm gonna give you a little bit more information because some of that has changed at the state level as to how they report.
Okay.
But this is students who would have received a 1 or a 2 are not passing, and students who receive a 3 or a 4 are passing.
Okay.
And that's how it's traditionally been reported to us. Next slide is math. We saw those 5th grade math scores have some tremendous growth in the last year and a half. A lot of focus at elementary on math in our PLC work, but also looking at what some of that math scores look like in at both 8th grade and 10th. We have work to do. We're not happy to see this. We know that this has to continue to be our focus, but we also know that this is a focus not only across the state, but across the nation. We're not in a hugely different situation, which I'm not saying is great to be all together, but nonetheless, we have room to grow, and we are well aware of the job we need to do. And then it brings us to science. And let me back up and tell you, so for ELA and math, we test at 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th. And then for science, we test at 5th and 8th and 11th. So we're showing what those scores are in science, and we clearly have some work to do around that. We would look at specifically the high school, specifically at 11th grade. There's some compelling things that are also happening right at that time. There's running start opportunities. There's 11th grade kids that do they have the buy-in and the momentum and the interest, the motivation? Is the test valid, not valid, but important to them?
Relevant, yeah.
Yes.
Do Running Start kids take this test, or are they exempt from it?
They're expected to take the assessment. It's just challenging
To get them ready.
to take the test.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's Running Start, there's Cascading Tech students,
Yep.
who, depending on when the testing window is, There's also with science at the high school, 3 credits to graduate. But they don't necessarily have to all happen the first 3 years. We encourage students to take science 9th grade, 10th grade, and then sometimes they don't take it their junior year. They take it their senior year. So yeah, we're actually doing some work with how do our courses align to those standards, and we have a variety of courses because you want to have a diverse number of classes to offer students, but making sure that we're hitting the standards that they're being assessed on. So anyway.
So there's some complexities around that. Next slide. So this last slide of mine regarding smarter balanced assessment. So the state, and understand that the state comes in, and Washington State does not do well across the country, as we've seen some of the data that comes back. They have now made some determination that we're somewhat holding ourselves accountable at a higher level than possibly many other states. And so therefore, they're going to be changing some of the reporting. And just like the question, Jim, that you asked, when I said regarding 1s and 2s not passing and 3s and 4s passing, they're now stating they're giving it different language. And what it's saying is, and obviously our data looks better, right? But what that also means is only kids that are getting a 1 are the kids that are not passing. Other kids are saying are on grade level, they're on track, they have some foundational skills, and then above. So those kids that are lying in a 2 are now included in that graphic in the blue. And so now when you do go on the report card on OSPI, there will be two graphs that will show what that data is. And I hesitated kind of throwing this into the mix. The team really felt like we need to give you some foundational knowledge about the change, but also knowing this is not how we have traditionally communicated our data and our scores.
So green is the old, blue is the new?
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
And this is all the grade levels combined, or?
This is for just this last year, 23-24, the 3 content areas, green is 3s and 4s passing, blue is 2s, 3s and 4s, considered passing.
But looking, like you said,
Also
comprehensive
grades.
every.
Yes.
Okay.
And
All
this-
grades and tests.
Yeah, and this is the data. So the data is presented both ways on the report card on the OSPI website, which is why we wanted to introduce it to you all. So that if you look at it, you're going to see the numbers that we already shared, but you're also going to see this new set of numbers. And we wanted to start introducing this concept of the differentiation between the foundational grade level knowledge, which is a 2, 3, or 4, or the on track for college without need for remedial classes, which is what used to be passing. So like Tracy said, Washington was really holding itself to a bar that was like ready for college versus like
The rest of
meeting
the
the
country.
standard at the grade level.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
We'll talk about, setting people up to meet expectations later. So, so student attendance, we talked about
Boy,
that
this
as
is
part
a
of the.
tough group.
I know, right? Like,
Yes.
we have lots of opinions. Student attendance is also part of that school improvement framework. It's an area that we work closely with our like school secretaries as well as with building leadership and the families we serve. Since the pandemic, there definitely has been a decrease in overall attendance or regular attendance as defined by OSDI. That means students who've not missed more than 2 days of school on average per month. So it's about a 10%. Note that the absences, it doesn't differentiate between excused or unexcused, so those both count the same way. So a student who is sick for 5 days in a month, they're not being considered to be regular attendance, even though those are excused absences. We did see an upward trend in grades K through 5 and 6 through 8, but our high school one dropped. I know that each of our schools are looking, they're looking at this data. They're also going to be sharing information with you about tools that they're using to encourage regular attendance. And those are coming from things like the attendance works and the attendance matters campaigns. Erin sent out a communication that kind of provided a bunch of information for parents. We'll be working with families on making sure that they're doing things within their home environment that are supporting regular attendance. So things like a consistent bedtime, routines that are helping support students to be able to get up, be ready, and be at school on time. We know that students who are not in school are going to struggle to be successful.
So this is the discipline data from the past 3 years. You'll notice that the middle school data is trending downward. We've had a large focus on middle school discipline specifically because we know that can be a challenging time in kids' lives developmentally and therefore behaviorally at times. You'll also notice that like this last year, 23-24, we saw an increase both at the elementary and the high school level. The elementary data is inflated by a single building. So across 3 of our 4 buildings, we saw consistent discipline levels. And at 1 building, we saw kind of a spike last year. So that's kind of why it's inflated slightly. And then the high school had a higher discipline last year. And so that's an area that we can focus on. We also want to make sure that we're encouraging our buildings to implement their discipline procedures, right? And hold students accountable and create safe and productive learning environments. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to see years where discipline looks a little bit different. This data specifically looks at individual students who were excluded. And so this is not the number of exclusions at the different grade levels. It is the number of individual students that were excluded at the different grade bands.
And excluded is defined as?
Excluded, as this data is concerned, is any like in-school suspension, short-term suspension, long-term suspension, or expulsion. The state may define that differently when they officially report those numbers, but they are multiple years behind in making discipline data specifically available to us. So we use our internal data.
And when you look at that data kind of disaggregated by those classes, do you see anything of significance?
But disaggregated by what kind of class?
The exclusion, I mean, suspended forever is quite different than.
Yeah, our short-term suspensions is our highest category. Our focus, right, is going to shift to kind of the length of exclusion because we recognize the importance of keeping students in school for learning and to not decrease as much as possible the amount of learning minutes students have. And so as much as possible when we have opportunities to provide in-school suspensions, that's encouraged because it's easier to provide students instruction, even though it's not necessarily with their grade level peers. It's in a different location. So that's kind of a little bit of the focus, but short-term suspensions is our most popular.
Most popular.
And then just for your information, right, when you look at student discipline as a whole, from an equity lens, we like to look at some of our subpopulations, right? So you can see that approximately 19% of our total exclusions are students who identify as Hispanic or Latino, whereas about 74% of our total exclusions are students who identify as white. And for reference, we've got about 78% of our population demographically that identifies white, and about 14% of our student demographics who identify as Hispanic or Latino. And so as much as possible, we like to see the demographics of our school district match whatever data we're looking at, right? So we would expect to see that if 14% of our students are Hispanic and Latino, approximately 14% of our discipline and exclusions would be students who are Hispanic and Latino. So that's just information where we can always work to make adjustments so that our data is equitably administered to students across the board.
So I get to talk to you all about college and career readiness, which includes grad rates. And so you can see by the graph that we are just slightly, it's a teeny, itsy witsy little bit lower this past year than the year before. A nice little point of like things to consider is that 4.4% of that 23-24 graduating cohort are continuing on in a 5th year. Our goal is 90% or higher. So we're almost there with that 4.4%. We would have knocked it out of the park. Of course, we want our students to graduate on time. There's also a group of students that also did not, right? So we have some work to do, but focusing on our students to help them graduate in 4 years as much as we can. That's what we want to do. In 2027, Washington State has a goal of 90% of all students graduating, and that what they call on-time graduation, or 4 years. So we'll continue to work to support our students to get across that finish line that way, onto their next whatever, right?
So
whatever their next
that
step is.
6% just never graduate.
Well, yeah,
They
that
drop out
they drop,
somewhere,
or they go
Okay.
to get their GED or some other way.
but not moved to a different district and we lose them.
That's a good question. They're not
No, okay.
part of our cohort anymore, so
Yeah,
they
if
could.
if we know they went to another district, they're not in this number, they're in the number of the district that they.
Right, okay.
So
So
if we
it's-
receive a
it's-
record request, they go to the district they went to.
So those other ones are ones we don't know.
No.
Yeah, or we know that they have dropped out
Yeah.
or gone to get their GED or some other, yeah. So next one. Oh, thank you. And again, looking at this through an equity lens, digging into our grad rates by students that or by race and ethnicity. So reviewing kind of our 2 highest subgroup populations of students that identify as white and students who identify as Hispanic Latino. You can see we're pretty consistent with our students that identify as white, but we kind of go up and down and up and down with our students that are identify as Hispanic or Latino. So we want to try and keep them, and support them as much as possible, just as all of our other ethnic groups. So we've got clearly have some work to do there as well. Also part of college and career readiness is, along with grad rates, is our dual credit attainment, also part of that report card. We have a number of dual credit opportunities for students. Some listed on there are CTE articulations, our college and high school, or Running Start, which we heard from our students earlier today. And you all will hear more about those programs throughout the year. But we wanted to highlight, we thought it was important to highlight our advanced placement opportunities, which is another dual credit opportunity. It's because we actually have the data right now. So as you can see, we have we're in a steady incline of the numbers of students that are taking advanced placement courses, which I think is awesome because our enrollment is actually decreasing. So that's awesome. And then you can also see in the blue there that we have more students that are taking those exams. And about 20% of our student population take AP or advanced placement courses. And so when you think about, this will be the next slide. When we think about how this particular dual credit works, it is dual credit by assessment. So it really is important that our students that take those advanced placement classes actually take the exam. So if you're in the class, take the test. So some of the students may have taken the more than one exam, but as you can see, we are steadily increasing the number of students that are actually passing those AP exams, which indicates college ready and also college credit. So in general, an AP course from a score from an assessment at a 3, 4, or 5 would be an accepted college credit. Each school, gets to decide, but that's pretty much the average. So that's what you usually see.
Right, so in summary, you'll hear more from our principals as they share in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Actually, our next board meeting. Yeah, next board meeting, and the secondary is 2 board meetings after that. So you'll get more details. So yeah, we're thrilled with some of the results, not so thrilled with others, right? And we know what Tracy mentioned, like the work we need to do, alignment to standards. We're discussing scope and sequence of course, making sure that we're hitting those standards. It's quite possible that maybe when we look at this, maybe some of the standards we're not hitting because of where the assessment is. There's some things we don't control, right? That happens during the year. The PLC work that we've been doing for several years, we still believe that that is a big part of the solution is alignment to standards with those teams, looking at those standards. The scope and sequence, again, is very important. The assessment, looking at those assessment questions. There's different types of questions. Are we practicing those questions? And that's what we do within our assessments. So that's work that you started hearing about last year, maybe the year before. You'll hear more about that, like the interim assessments. So those are test questions or test like the Smarter Balance exam questions. So exposure to those questions, the 4 pointers, how are they scored? What does a rubric look like? What's a 4-point response? So not teaching to the test, we think that's really good practice for our students as they're being, as Tracy said, like as we're being judged on this improvement framework. And it's a struggle to not see those results sooner. Right? We have to wait for those. Yeah. And so we're optimistic about some of those results and how they're going to play out. We appreciate the resources we have. I think we're doing a good job spending that money on supporting our teachers.
Good.
Okay, questions that you have?
I remember, I don't know when, but I remember at a meeting hearing that the high school math curriculum was being better aligned with the expectations. Did that happen before any of these things, or it was early on in my
Well,
board
so yeah, we
career?
adopted a new algebra
Right.
and possibly geometry 3 years ago. I think it was.
Okay.
Maybe it was, it might have been your first year when you came on.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that,
the math scores are disappointing. That's all.
Oh, it is. I agree with you. It is disappointing.
Yeah,
And again, trying to figure out what it is specifically, what strategy, what initiative is gonna help us better support our students in getting those results up. As Tracy said, and this is not a cop out to like an excuse, but our scores are comparable to many.
well, that was my
in the
next
state,
question.
but
Yeah,
there are some that are higher, so looking at those and maybe it's something they're doing specifically. I do believe that the alignment to the standards, making sure that we are covering those standards
Stuff,
in the
yeah.
first 2 years, that's when they're gonna take it now.
Right.
If the student takes 8th grade algebra, they're algebra in 8th grade, more than likely, they're gonna have algebra 2 conclusion of their sophomore year, and they're gonna be more
tested
ready
on it. Yeah.
or that assessment that does have algebra 2 concepts
Mhm.
on it. We don't often know like what the breakdown is of algebra, geometry, algebra 2, statistics, and there might be some work with like statistics. Maybe that's an area that we're not quite hitting,
Yeah.
that we're missing. So yeah, to continue to work on again the alignment, supporting our teachers, and then when the students take it, they take it seriously, and it's a testing environment. It's going to support their best effort. And when does it happen specifically? So those are things that the high school team is aware of, that they're working on. We really feel like they made some headway with identifying a location. You would think it wouldn't be that challenging, but it is in a comprehensive high school when you're just testing a few individuals. Same with the AP test scores. Like when they're testing, that's a 2-week window that we don't choose.
Right.
AP Central, AP College, they choose that.
Right.
So we,
Might be prom week.
yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
example,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and any of the just things that when we don't have school, when we start later, like those are things that impact that. But we talked to a teacher today that's a lead teacher and is showing very good results. And he's really excited and passionate about what's happening. Those are good results, what we're seeing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you, team. Any other questions for them?
I mean, the ends really isn't, for me, the ends are what happens to our community's kids after high school. That's the end product. Do we have any way to, I've talked to Margaret about this, but is there any way to assess that?
Well, so collecting the data and then presenting the data, later in the year, we'll share more information regarding our graduates. And there is a way to find some of that information. And as a matter of fact, Mark Castle was showing me earlier today, like where he's looking at those results and whether a student is college bound and what a bachelor's degree will do for you as far as your starting compensation and what the costs are over a long period of time. So he's got some information. Some of it's available. We don't know necessarily how accurate it is in tracking students who are in college and how long they stay in college. Right. So there is some availability of that. We don't have a mechanism ourselves to keep track of our students.
Yeah.
So and to them come back and share with us how they're doing.
And not just college, CTE.
Technical school.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
See that they're successful plumbers or whatever.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been talking to CTC and some of our university partners and is just and this would only help in Washington, but our students in the K-12 system have an identification number. That identification number follows them through their entire K-12 experience in Washington State. Doesn't matter what school they go to, it's the same number. But as soon as they leave our K-12 system, that number changes. And my question is why?
Yeah.
So if we want to find out where they are, what they're doing, why does it have to change? So I keep pushing on people to why can't they have that number all the way through when they come back into the system? If they go to work for a while and then they come in and they have that same number, then we have better data. Now, again, if they go outside of Washington, it's a different story, but within our state, that's a large number of students that we would be able to get some better data.
So the good thing is there was a legislative change last year, which we did an opt-out process for families this fall as part of our FERPA form, and that SSID, which is the number Margaret's talking about, will follow students into their post-secondary pathways. It's just, this is the first year of it. So this year, the class of 2025, if they attend post-secondary options that are in a state school here in Washington, we will even start getting outcome data from them.
Wow.
It's just going to take 4 or 5 years before we know whether they were successful. I mean, it'll be quicker for community colleges. We'll get AA data probably more quickly than that, but it'll take 4 years for us to start getting the outcome data for higher education. Things that we have to see if people like Margaret and others that identify that legislature took action to start asking the colleges to track them.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like it makes sense.
Yeah, it
to
seems like a
track that.
no-brainer, right?
Yeah, I think.
Team, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Right, next on our agenda would be executive responsibility 11, communication and counsel to the board.
Yes, so you have the information in front of you. You received it Friday. And so instead of a presentation on this, I just want to ask you if you have any questions regarding the communication, how you receive it. And so, yeah, please let me know.
Yeah.
I received it.
Yeah.
So I think right now with how it's working, if you have a question, you reach out to me. I keep you updated.
Yep.
And I'm doing that weekly. And if something requires me to communicate sooner than that, or call you individually, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And it's only if it's like you can get information right away.
I'm fine with how this looks, and I really appreciate the weekly updates. Those have been really informative, and I feel like it keeps us up to date with everything. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next would be executive responsibility 11, communication with the public.
Yes,
And that's less. Yeah.
So Les is approaching the table. Once again, I will share with you on Friday, Shanice, or was it Thursday? Thursday. I think it was a Thursday. We were used to 12, or we have a series of meetings where we're going to be going to EST 12. All superintendents and interim superintendents, and their facilities or excuse me, fiscal directors are getting information from two individuals from East Hampton 12, just incredible support for us. Anyway, the point in this warm up in this presentation in introducing Les is during this presentation, and the communications director for East Hampton 12 was sharing about just how you communicate about bonds and levies, and how you communicate about fiscal challenges and a variety of things. They use a lot of Washougal examples, not because, or only because we've been going through some challenges, but because of the work that Les has done with presenting information. And so Monique is a partner of ours, East Hampton 12, but really Les is a leader in the county with communications. And I know that because I've worked with him and see his efforts, but also Monique has shared how much she values Les in his contributions. So we're very fortunate to have him in this role. And so he's going to share some information with you. I appreciate all that he does for us, and especially around communications.
Yeah.
So I'm Les Brown. I'm the district's communications technology and operations director. ER12 really deals with a whole bunch of different things, but a lot of it is about creating ways for us to be actively listening to our community and responding and showing that we're responding. One of the things that we started several years ago were our school board listening tours, like the one that happened earlier in this afternoon. We'll be advertising the rest of the series of those that are happening. Those I think have been a very well-received opportunity for people to sit down with the school board member to engage in a two-way dialogue. To learn about issues, but also to get immediate responses, which I think has really been helpful at kind of unpacking some of the misconceptions people have, and then having them be able to share authentic feedback with us so that we can focus on things. Some successes from last year. We really worked hard over the course of the year to be actively celebrating our students and their successes. Trying to make sure that we're balancing a mixture of things like athletics, activities, awards, student accomplishments, and then also just some of the really fun things that happen over the course of the year. We've been working really hard on engaging our community in our budget process. I am a little bit sick of talking about the budget, but I know that is just part of the work. That big green button that is on the main page of the website, which has been there since I think November, is still out there. As we start into our budget cycle again, so she'll be presenting the year-end report here in probably the next month or so would be my guess. We'll make sure that that's prominent because that's something that we made a commitment to the community to work on doing. There are some really amazing things that we get to do each year. Youth Arts Month is one of those really great partnerships. So we work closely with the city of Washougal, with the Washougal Arts and Culture Alliance, with our elementary, middle, and high school art teachers, and other community partners to really elevate arts here in Washougal every March. We do things like our CTE month, and then celebrations of staff, and then continually working on communicating information regularly with families. So this year, we did get some feedback through our community survey about the volume of communication that the district is doing. And so we're scaling that back just a little bit. You'll have seen that Erin is doing a staff message every other week. So that's in kind of the off week for the family messages. We'll be doing a bi-weekly parent communications. We'll get half as many messages from kind of the district vantage point. We're still actively encouraging our building principals to be a key communicator so that they're sharing information that's happening. We know that what is happening closest to the students and to the classroom is what is most interesting and most important for families. And so us stepping back just a little bit creates space for them to be doing that work without inundating people's inboxes. We're feeding our story pipeline, as I like to refer to it, which is curating really positive content for our social media. We want to make sure that when people are kind of browsing the web during lunch or whenever they're supposed to be on their cell phones, they'll find really positive things on Instagram and Facebook or on their watches if they're doing it. So part of that is also making sure that we're celebrating all different types of staff people. Erin talks a lot about how everybody in our organization is an educator. And we want to make sure that we're celebrating all the different types of employees and that they see themselves represented when we're talking about great work that's happening. We're still pushing out press releases. We just did a really great one. I just did a really great one last week about the CRG fifth grade field trip, which was funded through a partnership with the Estuary partnership. That sounds awkward, but I reworded that in the press release so it doesn't sound as awkward. Some really great photos that the staff who went along with it, as well as the Estuary partnership people provided. And so we want people who are reading the newspaper, who are supporting our schools, but don't have those connections with us to keep seeing those really positive stories. And we know that pushing things out that way is a really important way to do that. I'm not looking forward to the 4:30 a.m. communications because that's when I start waking up at 4:30 a.m. To be able to support our inclement weather process. It takes a lot of work to do that correctly. We get an enormous amount of feedback when we don't do it correctly. So we know that it's very valuable to people. And we will work hard on making sure that we're following the checklist and doing all the steps in the right order so that in the event that we have to close school or change schedules or snow routes, that we're sharing that information with folks. And we're not nearly as far away from the start of kind of the option for winter weather. Around November 10th is kind of we haven't done our yearly thing, sometimes our yearly test of the system. It may be that the test is actually the first time we're implementing it, which I think happened one of the years fairly recently. So those of you that are a district parent, you'll get a very friendly phone call from us. Fortunately, it'll be in the evening because we'll be just giving you the test message. It will likely be my voice, which is something I'm super thrilled about. Every once in a while, we accidentally send it to a retiree and then they call me and say, it's really lovely to hear from you. But don't call me at 5:30 a.m. I know where you are. So our focus for this year is to continue sharing those transparent messages, making sure that we're pushing those out in all the places where our community can find them. Really working on that story pipeline and building capacity. So I've been working with our coaches to make sure that where they have parents who are taking pictures of their own kids or the teams that are participating, that they're sharing those photos with us. So you'll start seeing more of those. We know that there are about 1 billion pictures being taken of great things that are happening. I don't have them, and so I'm working on making sure that I have access to them so that we can share those. Really working on community pride. As somebody who's worked for the district for what feels like forever, there are some really amazing things about Washougal. It's a wonderful place to work. It's a wonderful place to raise families. And we want to make sure that our community has that pride in our schools, and that we're putting our best foot forward and continually pushing out just how proud we are of our staff, our students, and their families and our community that support them. We're working on sharing events for our partner organizations, so things like the upcoming Harvest Festival that the city of Washougal is doing. We pushed that out, or Aaron pushed that out in his message last week. So recognizing that we have a unique position as somebody or a district, an organization that has kind of direct content for families. We want to make sure that we're leveraging the option of using the sidecar messages, as I like to refer to them, to share information for other organizations that don't have those direct pathways to send text messages or emails out to families. And then finally, knowing that we will eventually run another levy, most likely with board support. That won't happen this year, but it'll happen next year. And we want to keep reminding the community of ways that the levy is supporting students. I'm excited that over the course of the year, we'll start working on some of those capital project items that we identified, including the roof of the high school. I would love to be done talking about the roof of the high school. I know I shared previously that I've been talking about it for 25 years now. I would love us to put one on there that lasts until after I retire. So any questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you, though. Thank you for everything that you do. You nail all of this so well. And I never get tired of getting your emails, so you can keep on sending them. I always know that I'm like, I love seeing you because they're always so positive. I mean, obviously they're not every single one can be positive, but we do really enjoy all the new things that you've done too. It looks really nice. Appreciate it.
All right.
Representative.
Thanks, Les. Thanks, Les.
Thank you. All right, last is our board evaluation question discussion. So that was something that Jim had brought up about our questions. Do you want to discuss that? How are you feeling about that?
Well, I think Ida brought it up to me, and I think the question is whether those are the most useful ways to evaluate our functioning. It's kind of become a pro forma thing of deciding if it's worth bothering to check things off or not.
Is adherence to policy leadership versus administrative until it's not even a
What's that
question.
mean? Yeah, right.
So, yes, no. What is, yeah, I think that was the one that stood out to me.
Yeah,
And then the board demonstrated a sense of responsibility for excellence and governing the district. I also
course.
am not sure.
Are these all required questions?
no,
The questions are required, you're required
To do one.
to do one.
To do one,
Yes,
okay,
so a former board that predates me. came up with
Right.
this.
okay,
So You're free to do.
to change them or do whatever. Should we work on getting something new
I
put
think
together?
maybe
Okay.
send suggestions, or what do you think, Chuck?
Well, several thoughts. One of them is, I've not filled one of those out.
You're the one.
So that's why we get those emails. Don't forget, I'm like.
Where they're like,
I have not seen anything change in what we think people are due as a result
Of
of
that.
this survey.
Right.
And to ask questions where there is no resulting action seems to me a waste of time, so I just don't bother.
Okay,
Now, if we have a policy that says we will have a survey, then I think we should change the policy.
Is that our
Is it a-
district policy or state policy?
State policy that, I mean, it's up to you whether or not you want to adopt any policy, really, unless there's, RCW attached.
I didn't quite understand. Is there a state law or
Don't believe that it's state law, it's just, it's laws to policy
a WASDA
that
policy?
you have adopted.
Yes.
Years ago.
many
So-
years ago.
So, and then there's the underlying thing about, do we have to adopt every policy that WASDA puts out?
Not unless there's state law.
And my response to my own question is, no, we don't. So, as far as the questionnaire on, if there's something we want to know about what goes on in a meeting that we would ask ourselves in order to take some action, I'd be all for it. The way that we can improve,
Right,
but I don't know what it would be.
I feel like we would just discuss it,
yeah,
right?
this is a issue, let's discuss.
Was the purpose maybe to give an anonymous platform for folks to give feedback that they didn't feel comfortable
That's what I was.
sharing with the group?
wondering.
In which case, I think you could do that with like a one question optional survey. if
Yeah.
you revised it of like, was there anything we could have done to make this meeting more effective or more impactful to the community?
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it
That's a
very
good
generic
question.
and it's like,
Yeah.
yes, no, add your comment if it's a yes. Like,
Yeah. I
But
like that.
we're still gonna have to do that after every meeting though.
If we have something to
If we
share.
have something, yeah.
yeah, I think you make it an if you
If you
have something
have
to
something to
share.
share.
So that way you still have the anonymous platform if
Sure,
someone's not
that makes sense.
comfortable.
Okay,
But I don't think it should be man, I mean.
And
Yeah.
recipients of this information should be the superintendent and president. Because they're the ones that control
Who
what
can
goes on.
do anything.
In our
Yeah,
meetings.
okay,
I agree with that.
So then it could be a step that we would take would be when we need to go over the results of those.
yeah. We just say, okay, this came up, let's have a conversation. Okay. I think that seems like a good idea.
I do too.
So how do we?
So
action
what,
on that?
We will.
one
I
question?
will send what, let me
Some wording
remember
on
what I
it?
just
Yeah.
said. I'll email it to the
Okay.
group. Feel
Perfect.
free to, and then we can either adopt it or
Okay,
Can
adjust.
we email it to the group, or is that an open public meeting?
Oh,
Why don't you forward it to me,
yeah,
okay. I'll forward it to you.
forward it to you.
and it can be part of the Friday communication.
Sure.
Great idea.
That's a good idea.
Give Corey a chance to, to review the policy as well as the statute that is.
Yeah, dig out the specific.
Yep.
Written policy
Yes.
that we have that's making us do this every meeting, yeah. And change it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, is that it, everybody? Anything else?
Adjourn.
All right,
Second.
all right, we're adjourning this meeting at 8:59.
Oh, just in time.
Sure.
I was trying to like hold off because I was like, I want it to be the right at night. I'm so tired. Erin.
Yeah.
You are going to follow up with.
correct?
Yes, I will.
Let me know how that goes.
Yeah, so